Well, this is a very interesting turn of developments, and it's amazing how much can change after what occurred over a week ago. I'm recording this video on August 13, 2023. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know how Billboard's charts work, but I do know how to read numbers. And this headline is saying something to me. That the effects of what happened in Montgomery, Alabama has now transcended over into the music world, into those Billboard charts, and definitely affected Jason Aldean's song Try That in a Small Town. Because this headline from Fox 8 Live says Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town suffers historic drop from Billboard Hot 100 top spot. So let's see what they're talking about. After having a reputation as one of the most polarizing songs in radio airplay, the sizzle from Jason Aldean's most recent single, Try That in a Small Town, might be fading. According to Billboard's Hot 100 weekly update, the former #1 hit has suffered one of the steepest drops from the top spot in the history of the chart. And they actually posted up a picture of the charts. So basically, his dropped from the #1 spot to number 21. That is a steep drop, because usually how I do know the charts work, from what I do understand, is that usually if you hold a top spot for so long, if you do happen to drop, you shouldn't fall that fast out of the #1 spot that quickly. Usually it's a slow decline out of the top 10. It's not like you are at #1 and then the next week you at number 21, which is basically in a nutshell what his song did. In a nutshell. According to stats from Billboard magazine, the song fell from last week's #1 to number 21 this week, which is the biggest fall for a song that did not debut at #1. The largest fall from #1 in history is Taylor Swift's Willow, which dropped all the way to number 38 after debuting at #1. Written by Kelly Lovelace, Neil Thrasher, Tully Kennedy, and Kurt Allison, Try That in a Small Town was released to country radio back in May as the lead single for an upcoming 11th studio album. So he didn't even write this song, because they mentioned the 4 writers. His name isn't on it, so he didn't even write this song. So it's more of their song than his. It's about protests and riots in large cities, with Aldean saying that behavior wouldn't fly in small towns. Cuss out a cop, spit in his face, stomp on a flag and light it up. Yeah, you think you're tough? Well, try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road, the country star sings. Aldean also references being armed with a gun from his grandfather and ready to use it. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't try that in a small town, he goes on to sing. The song debuted at number 24 on the Billboard Country Airplay chart on June 3rd and number 35 on the Hot Country Songs chart in the same week. Try That in a Small Town became a phenomenon after a music video was released for it and pulled from CMT. Prior to last week's #1, the video's controversy shot the single all the way up to number 2 on the top 100. The music video is stocked with news footage from recent years showing protests in big cities, American flags being burned, and attacks on police officers. Adding to the controversies, viewers noted that the music video was shot in front of the Maury County Courthouse in Columbia, Tennessee, where an 18-year-old black man named Henry Choate was lynched in 1927. The courthouse was also the site of the infamous Columbia race riot in 1946 that left 2 black men dead, more than 100 arrested, and 25 tried by a jury on charges of shooting at white police officers. And one thing they also forgot to mention is that some of the footage that was used in that video wasn't even from stuff happening here in America, and a lot of it happened at least a decade ago. I did a video about that a couple weeks ago. Despite the song going through one of the largest drops in Billboard's history, it still remains in a strong position on the country charts. It only fell to number 3 on the Hot Country Song charts between Morgan Wallen's Last Night and Luke Combs' cover of the Tracy Chapman hit Fast Car. It also rose in position on the Country Airplay chart from number 25 to 20. Aldean has remained steadfast in defending the song and video. He is quoted as saying, "When you grow up in a small town, it's that unspoken rule of we all have each other's backs and we look out for each other." Sounds something like straight out of Jim Crow. It feels like somewhere along the way, that sense of community and respect has gotten lost. Deep down, we are all ready to get back to that. I hope my new music video helps y'all know that you are not alone in feeling that way, he wrote on the social media about the song's response. So, yeah. Interesting, very interesting. And I don't think any of us have to question on how it ended up getting into the position where it was able to fall like that. I mean, think about it. Think about what happened on August the 5th. That same week that it drops, or that same weekend that it drops, is the same weekend that what happened down in Montgomery, Alabama. So as you can see, it still has some lingering effects. I can tell you, this is probably going to stay in the news for quite some time. And I find it also interesting that this article does not bring up what occurred in Montgomery, Alabama, and how that most likely played a role in this song losing its luster. But that is quite a drop. I mean, you're talking about, you went from the #1 spot in the Billboard. That means you are the top song in the nation, no matter what genre of music it is in. And you fall from #1 to 21 after only being #1 for a week. And like I said, this song did not shoot up to the charts to the #1 spot when it first came out. Otherwise, it would have still been holding in that spot for many weeks. It just went to #1. And imagine you spent all these weeks going from like 35 to 24 or so on and so forth to climb the #1. And this one incident probably is one of the major reasons why it got knocked down. And then it got pulled from CMT. Like, everything around this song situation hurt Jason Aldean in a huge way. And don't forget about the triple P's that I did on him recently, a couple weeks ago, talking about how he had to postpone one of his shows to September because it was a washout because of rain, and he had suffered a heat stroke in one of his shows in Connecticut. And that happened literally back to back. It's like as soon as one thing happened, another thing came right behind it. But I don't feel bad for Jason Aldean. As a matter of fact, I'm sure many of the people who are subscribed to me and are watching me right now don't feel a damn thing for this man. It is what it is.